Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of 060s. Now, I've got to be honest, I actually filmed an intro yesterday for this video. I was a bit of a muppet and I held the GoPro in front of an air conditioning vent and it sounded like I was in a tornado. So, what you're going to see now, I'm actually on my way to Jake's to pick up the motor that I've purchased as a backup plan for the Flomax car. Yes, it's got its normal wheels back on, and even though the motor is a little bit down on compression, I can still move it around and it's not blocking out the hoist, which is my main concern. So the plan was, I was kind of being a bit optimistic. I was hoping I could use this other motor, build the other motor, and then just swap them over. So this will be on the hoist for a few days, getting the engine and trans swapped in, instead of have to have it on the hoist, pull the engine out, go and get the engine built, and then try and move the car with it. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare. Anyway, heading over to Jake's. Now, this motor was cheap. I need to be honest, it was cheap, and I was told that it had light rod knock in a certain RPM range. I can't remember what they said, but maybe between 2,000 and 2,500 RPM, you could just about hear it knocking. Now, I did walk past this motor about 3 weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, and noticed that the dual mass flywheel was cooked. So you could actually rattle the clutch around really, really easily. So I'm thinking, hey, maybe it's not rod knock. Maybe it's dual mass flywheel. The catch is I had to pay for it without knowing whether it was rod knock or not, or definitely rod knock. So it was a bit of a gamble. Now, I have seen photos of the crank journals between 6 and 2. Jake did pull them off as soon as I paid for it, and they were okay apart from cylinder 4, but let's join the action yesterday because I've got a bit more of a story to tell after you see there. All right, we are at Jake's, and now, Jake had the sump off, and we sort of wanted to have a quick look in it last week. And Jake did say that all the crank journals are in actually all right condition. What I might do is put it on that pallet, we'll lay it down and see if we can get some good light in there. Okay, so we've got it all laid out. Jake is he's just taken the oil pump off, which you've seen on the time lapse, and he's going to take cylinder 1 off. So we haven't actually seen that, but have a look at these rod bearings. So this is also the bottom side, which generally don't wear as much as the top. Obviously, the bottom side doesn't have to cop any of the cylinder pressure. The tops are all on there, apart from this is the top of cylinder 6. I guess it doesn't look much worse than the bottom. However, cylinder 4 is the worst, and it's cylinder 4's crank journal that we are sort of a bit worried about. I think that's what they're called. So that's actually got the worst marks on it. I'll try and overlay some better pictures so that you guys can actually see this, but going from cylinder 6, cylinder 5 looks pretty good. Cylinder 4's got a little bit of scoring on the crank. Cylinder 3 has a mark on the crank, but smooth as, you cannot feel it. Cylinder 2, I wouldn't even call it marked. So basically all those crank journals look really good apart from 4. But these are the bearings, guys. I don't know if many of you have seen an N54 pulled down, but that is bad. O'Reilly's bearings, which was a motor running horrific amounts of boost on a single turbo kit, when we stripped that down, the bearings looked brand new. This motor's only done about 110,000 kilometers, and this was a stock car, wasn't it, Jake? It wasn't like hybrids or anything?
Originally, yeah, and then it had hybrids on it.
Okay, so it did have some hybrids, but not huge power by any means. Didn't have a fuel system or anything. Well, not like port injection. Hang on, am I going to get this wrong? Did it have port injection? No, so it couldn't have been making that much power. So basically what I think's happened here, someone at some point has neglected this engine, not changed its oil, or been maybe a bit excited when the oil's cold to cause this, because it's pretty rare. Jake has pulled apart many N54s and he's never seen rod bearings like that. But hopefully the crank's going to be all right. Let's get this last cap off.
The wrong size.
Don't damage my rod bolts.
Just did.
Luckily I've got some China ARB ones coming.
Isn't there a set with the max speeding ones?
Sorry, they're the ones I'm referring to. They're already here.
Ready.
Yeah, just an update on that, guys. We have... What parts have I ordered? I have now ordered a transmission cooler adapter, the board to put the TCU Lamic into play in the TCU on the ZF8. Still haven't found a ZF8 yet. The cheapest ones I can find is still $4 grand. I'm trying to find something a little bit cheaper. Hopefully something pops up. But I don't want to get one that's too old either. Haven't paid Turbo Lamic for his TCU yet. Still waiting to hear back exactly what the delivery cost is going to be. Did that come off?
Not yet.
Oh, we'll be back in a second. All right, moment of truth. If this one's okay, we might get it. Oh.
Ooh.
Oh. Don't know if the GoPro's going to pick that up. It looks liney. Spun a bearing in it.
Yep.
Bugger.
The bearing is still okay.
Might have been too good to be true, guys. Oh, okay.
That's the backside.
How bad does that look?
Not the rest.
Oh, it's the copper. Oh my god, this is the worst one. Oh no. How does the crank look though? It looks okay. It looks like the bearing's done its job and it's actually sacrificed itself instead of the crank. I think it's alright. I'd say it's better than 4.
Well, a little mark in it, but...
Alright. So, you guys have seen what all of those crank journals look like. I mean, it was cheap. I had no... You got to take a bit of a gamble when you buy something like this. But, like I said at the start of the video, it's going to be interesting. We're going to get it to someone that can actually give a proper opinion on reconditioning it. Jake's all about using new, good, the right parts. I know it's crazy, weirdo. So let's find out if we can reuse this and how cheaply we can fix one of these cranks. Okay, so you'll notice I'm back home, it's in the shed, and we have the lovely motor here. Now you guys would have seen by now all the close-up pictures of the crank journals. They're all pretty good. The only audible click I can actually get on the journal with my fingernail is this one. So there's one score just there that I can actually catch my fingernail on. Guys, is it going to be repairable? So I've never done this sort of work on an N54 crank. All of the cranks that I've been involved in when we used to have the car yard, where there was machine work being done, that sort of stuff, they weren't forged. They were much lower power sort of engines. So I'm not really sure what the go is with this crank being forged, if it's going to be more sensitive to being polished, that sort of stuff. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts if it's going to be repairable. Something I didn't mention yesterday, this motor is a super low mileage motor. It's I think it's a late 08 from memory. Basically, it must be one of the later engines with the 8-bolt crank, so it is an 8-bolt crank. But it's done around 110 or 120,000 kilometers, so not many. Now, I actually stopped filming yesterday because there was a bit of a spanner in the works with my hopes and dreams of this motor being good. So I had Jake pull off cylinder 6 to cylinder 2, and all those ones sort of looked okay. The bearings had wear on them, but they were okay. It was cylinder 1 that we pulled off when we got the oil pump off that was actually really bad, and it's eaten into the copper on the bearing. Now, I do say the bearing was okay. They were not good for N54 bearings, but coming from the land of S85s and looking at every bearing failure on an S85 over the last sort of 10 years, the bearings that come out of this looked okay. They're not great for an N54. O'Reilly's bearings looked brand new. And that motor has obviously had a very hard time. But the reason I sort of stopped filming yesterday, we realised that this motor, about 10, maybe 6 to 10 months ago, actually sucked a drive belt in. Well, it either did it then, but Jake was doing an oil pan gasket on this motor and noticed that there was drive belt in the oil pickup. So where we were thinking maybe it was thrashed or lack of servicing, that sort of stuff, it's probably due to oil starvation. There was literally drive belt in the oil pickup. There's not anymore. Jake cleaned it all out. But I'm guessing the damage to the bearings was actually done back then, and then it's just taken a few months for it to surface as an audible knock. We'll see how we go. Let me know if you guys think this is going to be a repairable crank. Keen to find out. The plan moving forwards, once I realised that this was the motor that had the blocked pickup, even though it wasn't throwing any oil pressure codes or warnings or anything like that, it's obviously not getting as much oil as it should. But as soon as I realised that, there's a good chance the mains are going to be damaged as well. So really, the crank does need to come out of this, get the crank properly inspected, and just make sure that the mains are okay as well. Which I can't do straight away just due to the lack of space, but we will get there. I've also realised I've still got O'Reilly's crank. Now that crank, all the journals looked pretty good. Obviously it did snap a rod, and it wedged the remainder of the rod between the crank and the casing, is that what we call it? The block, I don't know, crankcase, I don't know. You guys know the proper term. And that's why the crank was stuck in there. The actual rod bearing wasn't seized on that motor, it was just wedged in there. Once we remove the crank out, you can actually spin the bearing okay, and the journal was fine. The issue is there's a good chance that crank is bent. So what I'm going to do, I think we're gonna get this motor working again. I just don't know if it's gonna work with this crank, but I'll keep you guys along for the journey, see if this is sort of gonna be repairable, if there's any other damage, and we'll go from there. Let me know your thoughts. There's O'Reilly's crank. Better get the balancer and, well, the hub, I should say, and the flywheel off of it, and we'll get it to the machine shop, get them to check if it is straight and if it's gonna be reusable. See if we can make another engine out of other bits. That's the plan. Because you guys do know we've got 2 sets of pistons coming, so maybe we'll try and do another build. I don't know. We'll learn, and you guys will be along for the journey. Thank you very much for watching. Oh, I do need to just add, sorry for the lack of videos. It's not for trying. The weekend was set aside to work on the E39 M5, and you may notice that the exhaust has been cut because it wasn't for lack of trying, I promise you that. We spent about 3 hours trying to get the header, or the collector, off the headers. Yeah, we blowtorched it, we ran the engine, we heat cycled everything, we smashed it with a hammer. All the seals the gaskets are all loose, but the pipe is at one with that. We've actually left it soaking in penetrant for a couple of days now. It's all full of WD on the, well, basically between the header and the collector. So maybe it'll come out, but yeah, oh, we spent so much time doing that. And then we got greeted with, and you guys will appreciate this because this is the reality, this car must have broken a tail shaft at some point because where the handbrake comes through the body of the car, these tubes were all bent and smashed, and it has got a carbon drive shaft, so that would be a good reason to upgrade the drive shaft. Problem was, because the handbrake cable is all nice and old, the plastic coating that's normally on the cable, you can see it sort of flaking off there in my fingers, as we pulled it through these bent and damaged tubes, the plastic all built up, and we couldn't actually get the handbrake out of the car. So we had to cut the it was like 6 hours to get the handbrake out, because we were trying not to damage those tubes. He's going to have to get tubes made now. Joys of old cars. But there is a video mini-series coming on reinforcing the subframe with welds, doing the diff bushes, all that sort of stuff, and the shifter. Lots of upgrades for the shifter. It's videos that aren't actually on YouTube on these E39s, so it'll be interesting to document it. And it should make this car a lot easier to go and thrash, which is what it really feels like it's built for. Oh, out of breath. Guys, thank you very much as always. It's all happening. Oh, and I got a quote back from Turbo Lamek this morning on freight. He's only quoted €100, so I need to make sure that is the right price. That seems quite cheap to ship all of that stuff from Europe to Australia. But if that is the case, that's great. I actually ordered a little aluminium adapter from Europe on the weekend, like something that weighs like 50 grams, and that was €50 to come from Sweden. So $100 for a whole Lamek kit. That's pretty good. All right, guys, keep you updated. Catch you later.